what happened was that I had kind of this mixed match system of AKG, Shure, Sennheiser, Rode. There's 4 different companies there for my drum kit. And that worked great. I mean, it does work great. I wanted something a little bit more manageable. And what I found was that each of these microphones required a certain kind of equalization process when I'm mixing to get the sound that I was going for. And I got a little tired of that, especially with my tom-toms. I found I was having to equalize those a lot to get the tom-tom sound I want. And I noticed other engineers doing that as well. They will scoop out typically the low mids or the mids and leave a lot of highs and bottom to those microphones to get those thunderous tom-toms that we hear. But I was wondering why do we all have to do that? Is there not a microphone that will kind of take care of that for me so that I don't have to do that every time I'm mixing down a drum kit? And I started researching the market and found that a company, let me just get these out of the way here, a company called Audix is making microphones for just that purpose. They were designed for drummers and drummers in the studio to handle that problem, to handle the problem of inconsistencies with different microphone brands and equalization problems. And they came up with a very nice, actually there's a couple of nice packages they offer from a very small basic kit of microphones all the way up to the one that I got, which is their full drummer's package, which cost about $1,000 from Audix. It comes in a great flight case, a really well-made, this is not plasticky, this is a really solid roadworthy case that they all come in. It's not cheap, I know, but it's quite an investment, but I don't regret it. Obviously all the microphones are not in here right now because they're on the drum kit. I'm about to show them to you. But that case comes with it, as do all the little stands. Not the stands, but the little mic clips. As you can see here, this mic clip mounts with a claw onto the rim of the drum, and then it has a little gooseneck adjustment there. It's really easy to clamp on and adjust, and it stays put. That way you don't have to have 3 or 4 or more mic stands cluttering up your drum booth, which can take up a lot of space. As you know, if you're in a tight area, mic stands can be tricky to position correctly. So these take a lot of that burden away from me. I can just mount them right up on the drums. They offer several different microphones, starting with the kick drum again. They offer the D6 kick drum microphone. It's a beastie looking little microphone. Actually, it's smaller than the D112, but it's kind of in the same ballpark. They weigh about the same, It's a beautiful looking microphone. Again, you've got the exhausts for the diesel fumes. But this is a really easy mic to use live and in the studio. You don't have to finesse it so much. You just stick it in the drum, and pretty much anywhere in the drum works. You don't have to position it very carefully. It's a pretty idiot-proof mic. Stick it inside the drum and bring it up on your console, and you've got an instant, punchy, great kicks sound without much EQ. I found that I was having to EQ this mic quite a bit to get it sounding the way I wanted. This one, you're pretty much good to go out of the gate, and I just love it. It doesn't require fan and power. None of the microphones that I'm about to show you require fan and power except the overheads, and I'll go over that in a sec. All right, now here's the front of the kick drum. And as you can see, I've got a little hole cut out here, 6 or 7 inches in diameter, and I reinforced that with a little bit of another older drum head. I just super glued that on here to kind of protect that. As you're moving in and out of this hole, it's easy to make that hole bigger, cutting into that a little bit. So I just reinforced it with an old, looks like a 7-inch head that I cut and glued on there. And then when you come in here with your kick drum microphone, in this case the Audix D6, what you want to do is just kind of get that in there a couple inches. You don't have to go too far back in, and just like that, and kind of point it near, in the vicinity of the front head. It doesn't have to be spot on, and just make sure it's not brushing up against the outside head there. If you put it in like that, and anywhere, don't have to be, it's not rocket science. Anywhere in there is going to be okay with this microphone. It's picking up a very nice large range. I tend to aim it right at the beater inside there, and just make sure that that cable is not sitting on the drum or anything like that. Otherwise, you'll get a little vibration. Make sure that's clear. And what I do is I use a rock. One thing in Hawaii is we've got an abundance of is lava rock, so I use a piece of rock that I just put right on the stand to weight it down and keep it secure. In addition to the inside mic, I've got another mic out here. This is a large diaphragm microphone. This is a powered microphone. One of my older mics, this is an Audio-Technica 4033. I used it for a long time for vocals and guitars and stuff like that. Again, I've kind of retired it to the drum kit. I love this little mic though. The diaphragm is on the other side. This is not a figure 8 mic, by the way. This is just a one-sided mic. It's a couple inches back off the drum to pick up some of this head and some of this air and action that's happening out in front of the drum, which sounds different than the one that's inside the drum. The one inside the drum is going to be a little more clicky, a little more attacky, a little more punch to that. Out here, you're going to be actually feeling some of that, the largeness of that kick drum. So you want to angle that down a little bit, especially if you've got a ribbon mic. Make sure you angle that down so that you don't hit that ribbon with a bunch of a blast of air. Especially if you're putting it on the hole, I wouldn't recommend that at all. But if you're using a ribbon, put it away from the hole so you're not blasting it with a cannon of air. And turn on your phantom power and bring that up on channel 2. This on channel 1, this on channel 2. You can blend them together onto one track if you like. I see guys do that a lot. They'll blend it down to one single kick drum channel, but I like keeping them separate so that when I'm mixing down, I can choose one or the other, or some combination or blend of them both. You might have to drop, there's a little pad on this microphone that I do turn on there because the kick drums are so loud. And this is a very sensitive microphone. You won't hurt it, but it will distort if you don't hit that pad. So either at the microphone or at your mixing console, you might have to turn on that. I recommend turning on that pad just to bring that volume down from that kick drum a little bit, right there. What you will get with this outside microphone in particular is a lot of the bleed from the cymbals and snare drum, which is just a little bit away, getting into that. So even though you've got the drum sort of protecting it from a lot of stuff, you are going to get bleed into that mic. And that's something I've got a little secret tip I'll show you separately on how to reduce the amount of bleed that you get into that outside mic so that you're able to bring the mic even further away from the drum, because if you bring it back a few more inches or a foot, you're actually going to be hitting even more of that low end from that and that moving air from that drum. So we'll cover that in a minute. As I discussed earlier, these microphones and the kick drum, especially this outside mic, it's great for getting some of the outside of the kick drum, some of the air and low end that's moving out here. Separate from this is that you're going to get a lot of bleed from the cymbals. It's typically a problem I have with any kind of microphone. Even a cardioid mic is going to get some bleed. And ideally, you want to have the microphone back a little bit further from the kick. You can put it in pretty close, but the further back you get, you're going to get even more push and more air from that drum. So having it close, you're going to get a little bit less cymbal, but the more you come back, you're going to get more and more cymbal, and other things like snare and tom-toms are going to get in that mic as well. So what I like to do is build tunnels. It's a pretty simple concept, but we're just going to isolate these microphones, especially this mic, from some of that noise. So what I've done, let me see if I can flip around here, is built this little wooden, I cut it out of 1/2-inch plywood and just jigsawed it. It looks like a tombstone, I know. Put some shelving brackets on the bottom to keep it from standing up. And I basically cut that to the shape of that drum. It doesn't have to be exact, obviously. You can use a square piece of wood, but I like this. You'll see why in a second. I flipped it over and I just made a makeshift little pad here. Nothing fancy. nobody's going to really see it. So just any kind of padding you want in there, covered with a piece of cloth or anything you can do just to pad it up a little bit. And then basically what you're going to do is put that pretty close to the drum. You can tuck it in under the carpet or put some bricks on it or duct tape it down, whatever you want to do. And get that in there within a foot or so of the drum. I think you're probably getting the idea here. Put it straight out in front of the drum. And right away, that's going to give you a little bit of isolation, but you see where I'm going here. I'm going to take a small rug or a beach blanket, anything that's got a little bit of strength to it so it's not too floppy. If you just put a blanket on there, it's going to fall right inside. So you can use a piece of foam, any kind of little piece of area rub or runner, anything you can do, anything that's absorptive, and just kind of set that on top like that. And there you go. It's already getting better. And then what I'll do is take it a step further and get another blanket. The thicker the better. This isn't that thick, but I'm just using this for demonstration. Use a bed sheet, beach towels, packing blankets, anything like that, and just build yourself a little tunnel like that and try to get it tucked in, just like your tuck your kids into bed, tuck your microphones into bed there. Doesn't have to be exact rocket science, but there you're getting some isolation from those cymbals and bleed that's going to get into that microphone. It's not going to be perfect, guys, but it's going to help a lot. And that way you can EQ that outside mic. You can bring up the lows on that a lot more than you could without worrying about bringing up cymbal bleed. So you can get a lot of more EQ on that outside microphone. In addition to the inside mic, it's going to be quieter too. You're still getting bleed from the other side of the drum. Keep that in mind. So no matter how thick you build this up, the thicker the better. You know, you can really go to town and get it completely isolated. And then you can move that inside mic even further back. You can move it back, you know, a foot or more, you know, and then you're getting a lot more air out of that front, you see. Also great for, don't forget, that's great for our ribbon mic. If you have a ribbon mic, go ahead and put it in there. Or a FET, if you've got a condenser FET, large diaphragm FET, something like that. It doesn't have to be a Neumann. Don't put your best mic down there. It's gonna, but if you're doing a ribbon mic, remember to angle that mic so it's not getting a blast of air straight into the diaphragm, into the ribbon. That will damage that ribbon over time. So there you go, guys. That's a quick little tombstone method to build a little tunnel for your outside kick drum microphones. You can also, if you have a second kick drum lying around, you can take the heads off of it and put that kick drum right out in front of here, and that'll make a nice tunnel as well, and then cover that with a packing blanket if you do have a second kick drum. And then you can just put the mic right inside that. Next on the block is the one you see right here. You can see that in the camera. Yeah, you sure can. I'll pull it out here a little bit. This is the Audix D5 snare drum microphone. It can be used for other things, obviously, than the snare drum, just like you can the SM7. But Audix basically wanted to come up with a new SM57, something that worked better and was just as powerful and durable and attractive looking. You know, they really came up with a good looking microphone, kind of similar in style. By the way, a really nice microphone to use in videos if you're tired of looking at 58s and stuff like that. Give your singer one of these in a music video. Doesn't that look nice? Anyway, that's the Audix D5. A very similar microphone in that you put it on the snare drum and it doesn't require much EQ at all to get that snare sounding brilliant. It's a strong mic. If you hit that with a stick, it's probably going to stand up a little bit better to the than the SM57. I think this is a metal casing there. It feels metal. And so you could do the same trick with the clothespin if you're nervous about it. But I don't. I just keep it out of the harm's way, tucked back in there. I've never had anybody hit that microphone that I know of. That's the Audix 5 right there. If you find that you're getting a lot of hi-hat bleed into your snare drum microphone, you'll find that that makes EQing that snare when you're mixing down more difficult, because you've got all that high-end getting into it. When you try to add some high end to your snare, you're also bringing up that hi-hat, and it's probably going to be too loud in the mix. So obviously keeping things mic'd separately is the way to go with that. Angling the snare drum microphone pointing in the opposite direction of the hi-hat is probably your best bet. As you can see there, I've got it pointing just about completely away from the hi-hat, angled a bit down, so it's not pointing at the ride either, kind of like that. So that's going to lessen the amount of that hi-hat that's getting in there. Just don't point it at anywhere near the hi-hat, like if you're coming in from a different angle. So that's one way. But if you still find you're getting a lot of bleed, which a lot of the times you are, especially if somebody's really hitting the hi-hat hard or kind of open and shanking it, that's really going to get in there a lot. And there's a couple things you can do about that. One thing I used to do is get a piece of foam, about 1-inch foam, and about 1 foot square or so, and clamp it on a mic stand and just kind of wedge it, not wedge it, but put it between the hi-hat and the mic as kind of a baffle between the two. That worked pretty well. What I've found here, though, is these things from, we've all probably got one of these sitting around from our traveling. They're just a pillow for when you're on the airplane, and you can find them anywhere. And I don't use it much when I'm not traveling, so I was trying to figure out what I could do with this thing, but it occurred to me that would be a great way to isolate the snare drum microphone. As you can see, I can just slip that on the top there and kind of rest it up against the tom-tom in the snare. Just make sure it's not hitting the hi-hat when you open and close that. So there's a little bit of clearance there so you're not muffling the hi-hat. And then you've got a really good baffle, as you can see, almost all the way around, and it's pretty thick too, to keep that hi-hat from getting in there. It's gonna really take care of a lot of that bleed. So pull this out of the closet if you have one, or go to the latest, go to the nearest store and grab one. They're really easy to find and cheap, and just put that on your snare drum mic like that. I suppose you could use it on other mics as well if you needed, on a tom-tom or something, but I never do anything like that. I just like it on the snare, and drummers always get a kick out of it too when I do that. So anyway, that does a great job. When you're in the drum booth, you might find that you're auditioning a few different snare drums for the drummer. So you might have a couple of them lying around in the drum booth, or you might be using different snares on different songs, so you're swapping them out. Depending on the song, you might want a deep snare for one song and then a tight snare for another. But anyway, if you've got a few different snares lying around, what you want to make sure you do is the snare that you're not using, you probably set it on the floor, on a shelf or something. If you're playing the drums in that room, that even though you're not using that snare is going to pick up the drum resonances in the room and vibrate, and that snare is going to rattle on your second snare drum. Here's the Ludwig I mentioned earlier. This is my old 67 Ludwig. Isn't that beautiful? But one thing I like to do is just keep a little piece of cloth under the snare there. That'll keep that snare from vibrating when you have other drums playing, especially tom-toms. When you hit those tom-toms or the bass drum, it's going to make that snare vibrate in the corner or on the shelf, and you don't want to have that snare, that second snare drum vibrating. So just stick a little piece of cloth under there, and then when you're ready to pull it out, you just take out the cloth, and she's armed. But you can see there how much that vibrates just when I do that. So yeah, so just get yourself a little washcloth or a piece of leftover cloth, and then flip the drum over. You'll have to turn the snares, open up the snares for a second. Where are they? There they are. Open those snares up. Stick the cloth underneath like that, get it squared away, and then turn on the snares, and that'll keep it in there from slipping around, and it's tight as a drum.